Welcome back to the Behind the Book online sports show. Gil Alexander, host of the Beating the Book podcast, live from the Mirage Sportsbook in Las Vegas, Nevada, alongside, once again, the VP of Racing Sportsbook at MGM Resorts International, the great Jay Rude. Hello, Jay.
How you doing?
I'm good. You ready to have your money taken from you by everybody?
Yeah, I had that happen a little bit last week, but we'll see what we can do to hold on to some of that. But I'm going to give some nuggets out, so hopefully people can heed my advice and maybe make a little bit on their own. But for the overall experience, I think I want to try and keep on to more than I did last week.
See if we can try to get some nuggets out of him. Here's a story. We do 3 college football games. We talk about 3 pro football games. And then we try to get some betting nuggets in there, make some money for you. And then afterwards, Jay is going to tell us a story about one of his old sportsbook experiences, the fight night, right? Back in the day, the fight night.
The bite night, yes, a boxing story from the old MGM days.
Okay. Sounds like
well,
Mike
new
Tyson.
MGM, but not quite the old MGM.
All right, you ready to do this college football?
Let's do it. Yes.
Okay, Tennessee, Texas A&M. That's the first college football game we're going to look at. Tennessee, 6.5-point dogs as we look up on the board here at Texas A&M. Both teams are 5-0, Jay, but not all 5-0s are created equal. Tennessee has trailed in 4 of those games by double digits. That's unbelievable, and yet they're still 5-0. And I guess you could look at that one of 2 ways. One, they're just that good in crunch time. They bear down defensively. Somehow they're able to recover fumbles, which is ridiculous, obviously. Or they're just a team that is skating on thin ice, and this has to end at some point. And you would think a team like Texas A&M is disciplined enough. They don't make mistakes. Maybe this is where Tennessee meets their demise.
Yeah, I mean, I had the exact same thing written down on a piece of paper. All 5-0s are not the same. Wow. And this is a classic example of that. Tennessee literally could be 1-4 against the spread with a couple of bounces of the ball. And I think a lot of people kind of realize that Tennessee has been living on the edge, and Texas A&M is a little bit more of the disciplined school and squad right now, which is ironic considering who one of their famous alumni is, who has absolutely no discipline.
Who would that be?
Johnny Football. So it's a little ironic that their school has turned around into such a, really, they don't turn the ball over. They don't hurt themselves. And I think that is going to be the difference in this game. Obviously, everyone goes, oh, that's fairly obvious. That, who doesn't make the most mistakes wins the game, of course. So I think we're going to be big Tennessee fans. I do like the 6.5 that I'm probably going to get. This could run to 7. But yeah, I think most people are going to kind of line up with the team that seems to be playing a little bit more consistent and plays with the lead. Nobody likes to have to come back and be cardiac kids every week.
And at 6.5, you're sort of it's sort of that begging for Texas A&M money kind of feel to it.
Not quite begging for it, but right. If I went to 7, I think the Sharps would definitely see the value with a full touchdown with a team that has the capabilities that Tennessee does have. At some point they're going to put together a full game and not have some of the problems that they've had to overcome. And that might be this week, might be next week, but plus 7 points is pretty attractive. You can get that.
So here's what I'm hearing. If you want to bet on Tennessee and take the points, wait as long as you can to see if it goes to 7, if the public money comes in, and then grab the 7 back.
Right.
Yes?
I think you'll be on the Sharp side. You'll probably be on the house side if you're doing that as well. And since the house had a bad week last week, it might be a good week to be on the house side.
Okay. Tennessee seems like the play, but let's wait as far as we can until game time. Game 2 that we want to talk about is in the SEC. Alabama, undefeated, of course.
Alabama.
14-point favorites at Arkansas. Arkansas is no slouch. They're 4-1. And besides Ole Miss, really, the Razorbacks have played Alabama about as good as any college football team has over the last few years. Haven't beaten Alabama. Alabama's won 9 straight. But let me just play the devil's advocate here. Let me just take the Arkansas side because everybody loves Alabama and thinks they're great. But there is a formula, I would imagine, Jay, for Arkansas to, if not win this, at least cover, which is kind of be in the SEC's Wisconsin. Grind it out, slow down the game, have their quarterback, Austin Allen, who has 10 touchdowns against no picks in his last 4 games, have him just convert on 3rd down, keep it at their pace. That's the way to go, right?
Yeah, and
that's their formula.
Good news for them is they have the ex-Wisconsin coach running that team right now.
Right.
So that could be the formula that they want to use. Obviously, keep Alabama's offense off the field. Although Alabama's defense, only giving up 13 points a game, has been very, very stout themselves. I think they're ranked 9th in the nation right now. But the point differential between what Alabama's giving up and what their defense is giving up, or scoring and what their defense is giving up, is around 34. I mean, I think Arkansas has been giving up way too many points. I think the public realizes that Arkansas's defense is probably not up to par of an SEC defense at this point. And I think it's going to be really hard to stop the Alabama money.
Yeah.
Minus 14 right now. It's been holding steady, but I think that number is probably going to drift as we get closer to game time. I can't see the number coming down. I can only see it going up a little bit. And the only thing I can hope for is that if we were to move off of 14, I might be able to move the VIG to minus 20 and get some buyback on the other side so I'm not in a side situation with the Sharps. But we'll see. I think it's going to be a lot of Alabama money.
A lot of inside betting talk there, but the main thing, I guess, in both games that sort of is the theme is if you like the underdog, you might want to wait as close to game time as possible. That will maximize the amount of points you can get. But if you like the favorite, just go ahead and bet it as soon as you can.
That's the general rule most of the time.
Okay.
I would say 80%.
All right. Well, for those two games, certainly the case. This one, I just don't think this number is going to move if it stays where it's supposed to stay venue-wise, and that is Florida State traveling to Miami, we think, to take on the Hurricanes. The Canes right now favored by 3 points. The problem here is, and this is supposed to be really a throwback to great Miami FSU games of the past, both teams are good. FSU not really meeting expectations this year.
Right.
Miami exceeding expectations to some degree. But Hurricane Matthew is touching the coast of Florida right now. We're doing this on Thursday. It's a Category 4. Like, this is a serious hurricane. And so there's a thought that this game could be moved to Tampa on the other side of Florida, on the west coast of Florida, the Gulf side. Or if it stays in Miami, the notion would be it's going to be a sparse crowd at the game.
Yeah.
How does that factor into your thinking? Is there an opportunity for bettors if it's not really a home field advantage at all?
You know, it can be. I mean, it's still going to be a home field advantage. They're going to be staying in their comfort zone. They're going to be in their clubhouse. They're going to be surrounded by, their normal surroundings. The other team, on the other hand, is coming into, literally 2 hostile environments. The Hurricane just passed through,
right.
And you're going to have, the Hurricanes team on the other side. So it's going to be, I think, it can neutral out for both of them. But I think, obviously, Miami's still going to enjoy a little bit of a home field advantage. If the field is off really bad and, FSU doesn't have the right cleats or something, the field could be really bad, and the equipment manager better be on top of his game because this field could be a miserable mess on that game.
That's right.
So, we'll see. It should be a great, great game. It's a great rivalry, if all things go well, then the game will go off and it'll be one of the better ones of the weekend.
Florida State has beaten Miami 6 straight times. Dalvin Cook, I think, had 222 yards last year. If the field is as Jay suggests it might be, maybe the advantage goes back to the hard-running Dalvin Cook. Shall we go to the pros?
Let's go to the pros.
Okay. Pro football, week 5 in the NFL. Wow. Already in the second quarter of the NFL
Flying
season.
by.
Really is. Been a good season so far for you guys?
Yeah, pretty good. Take out last week, but that's okay. It happens from time to time.
Tell the truth, Jay. No one wins long-term in the NFL.
The players, yeah, no, it's extremely hard. I was telling you that if you had the opening spreads going into the third quarter, it would still be difficult to produce a winning season in the NFL. It's that unpredictable.
That doesn't mean you can't win from week to week, though, individual weeks, and maybe even have a good stretch. So we'll try to make it happen this week for you. And let's start with an early game on Sunday as I look up on the board right now. The Patriots. Tom Brady is back. Patriots are 10.5-point favorites at the only winless team in the NFL, the Cleveland Browns. Cleveland's 0-4, but they're not really a terrible 0-4. They're a team that could very well be 2-2. Should have beaten the Redskins last week. Fumbled the ball away twice late to give the Redskins not only the win, but the cover.
Yep.
But it is Tom Brady. I guess Rob Gronkowski will show up magically this week with more than one catch that he's had all year. What are bettors doing in this so far?
Well, yeah, I mean, like I said, the king is back. This is usually the matchup that all the bookmakers hate, Belichick and Brady. They always get the action. I anticipate that we're going to be in that same scenario this week. Everyone's going to jump back on, now that the band's back together. We're going to need the Browns even more than we normally need the Browns. We need the Browns every week, and it's been nice. I mean, the Browns have actually been competitive.
It
hasn't been just a game that I have to turn off after the, halfway through the second quarter and say, all right, chalk that up to a loss in the books. They've been competitive. I think they can be competitive in this game. Brady is on the doubtful list, so who knows what's wrong with him after 4 straight weeks of being off.
He'll be fine.
We'll see, but this number is gonna. I think everyone's gonna pile on the Pats, like they should at this point probably as well, because they've played well without their leader there.
And we don't talk about key numbers much on this show, Behind the Book, but we should, in saying that key numbers in the NFL, for those who are not Avid sports bettors, or not professional sports bettors, 3, 7, of course, 10. But 10.5, this goes up any, and it makes sense if you watch football. Anything in between 10.5 and 13 is kind of a no man's land, right? It doesn't really matter so much in terms of what your conviction is on the bet. So we'll see where that goes. 10.5 again as we do this on Thursday morning. In the afternoon, Jay, on Sunday, great matchup. The Falcons, who are 3-1 and coming off a game where Matt Ryan threw for 503 yards against the Carolina Panthers defense, which is largely the same defense that took them to a 15-1 record, or at least helped them get to a 15-1 record last year. The Falcons now 3-1. Julio Jones, by the way, 300 yards receiving, I should say.
First time that's ever happened.
Yeah, 500 and 300.
Yep.
First time ever. They travel to the Denver Broncos. Altitude, the Broncos are undefeated. The Broncos defense is every bit as good as it was in the Super Bowl last year. But it is Trevor Siemian. It is a rookie quarterback. Broncos favored right now by 5.5. It's a great game.
Trevor Siemian, possibly. I mean, Lynch might be coming in, and it depends on how Trevor responds this week. We haven't gotten the official report out of the Broncos camp at this point, so we'll see. I mean, I think that you throw either one of them at, because Lynch looked really good in the closing games against the Buccaneers, but the Buccaneers were uninterested and didn't want to be in that game last week.
So bad.
Again, another weather delay in that game, so it looked like they didn't want to be on the field. So you don't know how good that Trevor Lynch sampling is. But the public is definitely on the Broncos this year. Peyton leaving has had little to no effect on whether the Broncos are drawing action, and it's drawing every week, very strong, and I expect the same here. Falcons, were one of our better wins last week. That was one of the shining lights on our card last week. Because
for
the
you
public,
guys.
yes, for us,
the
public hasn't embraced them whatsoever. They just seem to think Matty Ice's mystique is gone. And now they're going on the road again. They performed well on the road against the Raiders. They gave the Raiders their only loss. So we'll see what happens. I mean, it's going to be a tough matchup, offense versus defense. Obviously, the Falcons, I think, are probably the highest scoring offense in the league at this point. And Broncos are easily the best defense in the league. So it's a matchup of wills. A
lot of points to give for the Broncos. 5.5, still a lot of points. Not a negligible amount against a high-powered offense like the Falcons. Final game that we want to talk about, Jay, Sunday night. Packers, 7-point favorites hosting the New York Giants. The Packers are 2-1. They didn't look that great in their first two games. Came storming back against the Lions, but they're on extra rest. They had a bye last week. The Giants are on short rest because they played Monday night and got destroyed by the Minnesota Vikings. So now it's 7 points. The Giants are so difficult for bettors because you want to think that they're actually good. And then the evidence seems to suggest week after week that might not be the case. But you would think on paper, Odell Beckham Jr., Victor Cruz, Sterling Shepard, they could exploit a Green Bay pass defense that's given up 8.3 yards per pass so far.
You would think. I mean, Green Bay, like you said, on a bye, coming off a win that they should have won by more than they did. Their defense obviously gave up quite a few points late in the game there. Stafford leading a little bit of a charge at the end. So with that being said, that in NYG, really looking bad on Monday night.
So bad.
Manning was doing his smirk that he does all the time when things don't start to go his way. It's going to line up that everyone's going to be on the Packers, especially after the bye week. It's going to be a difficult game for us to draw a whole lot of money on the Giants. I think obviously if the number jumps to 7.5, we'll see some smart money come in on the Giants. Smart, sharp, whatever you want to call it. Yeah. The guys with the bigger bankroll are going to be on the Giants at plus 7.5. Just because I think, like you said, the Packers, their weakest part of their game is their defense, and they might not be able to handle that. But Eli and the team chemistry is off at some point, and the bettors see that. I mean, they saw it on prime time last week, so it's really going to be, I think, a difficult sell for me to try and balance that game.
You see it in Eli Manning's face when it's not going well.
Absolutely.
I'm on the Giants as well. I think you just lost some money on some baseball.
Playoff baseball alive and well.
All right. Hopefully we gave you a nugget on the football there, college or pro, make you some money. Jay, it is that time for you to tell us a story.
Oh, yes. June 1997. It was Holyfield Tyson 2.
Yes.
The fight was at the MGM Grand. I was the supervisor on duty that night. It was one of the better fights that, the anticipation was built up. The first fight was a little bit of a, it seemed like maybe there was some influence from the referee on the first fight. So everyone was really looking forward to this fight.
The first Tyson Holyfield.
First Tyson Holyfield fight. And then what happened was unprecedented, I think, in sports.
We'll never forget it.
And I was actually the supervisor on duty we had taken millions and millions and millions of dollars in wagers on this fight. Tyson was a massive favorite. Holyfield was the champ. Tyson was the challenger. Tyson, I believe, was about a 7-1 favorite in this fight. Obviously, the fight didn't go the way Tyson thought it was. He got rocked early in the rounds, and he panicked because I think he knew that he was in trouble. So rather than maybe going down in defeat, he decided that he was going to find a different way to get out of this fight. And obviously, what happened was he started to resort to barbarian tactics.
A little cannibalism.
Cannibalism. And of course, the result was he was disqualified from the fight for biting both of Holyfield's ears. He bit a big portion of one of his ear off.
Oh, yeah.
So then, of course, everybody was in pandemonium. They all come to the book to try and figure out, how am I going to get paid? What's the decision? What's the disqualification entitle me to? What are the official rules, here? So what was really going to happen was, everybody was running towards the book, and just like I said, pandemonium ensued in the casino. There were champagne bottles that dropped and exploded, and it made it sound like there was other things going on. I'm not a proponent of having bars on a race and sportsbook counter, but I was glad those bars were there that night.
So who ends up getting paid in that event?
We paid the Holyfield people because Tyson got disqualified. And it was one of those stories where there was so much confusion going on. Tables were being thrown, overturned. I ordered my staff to lock their drawer. We all dropped to our belly and crawled out of there like military style, like under barbed wire, to the back door. And we turned on the TV, and CNN had it live. A disruption at the MGM Grand following the Tyson Holyfield fight.
And there was you on CNN.
And there was us. And I had to call up, and we had they were lined up in front of the cage with shotguns and everything, Metro, and I was over there. We had millions of dollars in cash and not a single security officer to be found.
Wow.
I had to beg to get someone to come over. And at the end of the night, we're walking over millions of dollars in a box labeled Budweiser, because we couldn't get them to bring over a cart that we could put the money in that locked properly.
Wow. So you say you want to be a bookmaker, huh?
Yeah, it happens. Things happen. They're so unpredictable. You go to work thinking this is going to happen, and something completely different happens. But I was glad I was there. It's a story that I'll remember for the rest of my life. That's for sure.
Absolutely.
Being tied to Mike Tyson and Holyfield is one thing.
Let's hope you don't have to go through that again. Jay Rude, VP, Race and Sportsbook, MGM Resorts International. Stories and answering all your questions. Once again, we'll try to get it on next week. #BehindTheBook. Live from the Mirage Sportsbook. Once again, this is the Behind the Book Sports Show. I'm Gil Alexander, host of the Beating the Book podcast. Thank you to Jay. Good luck this week in college football and in the NFL.